The night the dead entered Winterfell was meant to be the end of everything. The Night King commanded the greatest army the world had ever seen. He had giants, White Walkers, countless whites, and the ability to raise every fallen to fight again. His aim seemed simple: wipe out the living and plunge the world into an endless winter. That's why it shocked many when Arya Stark was the one to kill him, and even more astonishing was his reaction in that final moment. He saw her approach. He turned to face her. He even caught her when she leapt. And then he simply stood there, holding her as if he was waiting. If the Night King was as powerful and intelligent as the show suggested, why didn't he stop her? To answer that, we need to look closely at who the Night King really was. The show never gave us much detail about him, but we do know some important things. He was once a man, turned into the first White Walker by the Children of the Forest. They pushed dragon glass into his chest to create a weapon against men, but he became something else, something they could not control. From that moment, he waged a war not just against men, but against all life. Every move he made after that seemed careful and deliberate. He did not speak, but his actions told us a lot. He could have wiped out Bran and the three-eyed raven in earlier seasons, but he waited. He could have attacked Winterfell earlier, but he took his time. This was not a mindless monster. This was a being with purpose. Now think about the battle in the Godswood. The Night King walks slowly toward Bran. There is no rush, no chaos in his movements. His generals stand behind him, almost like they are guarding him but also witnessing something important. When Arya appears, she is fast, but the Night King is faster. He grabs her midair with one hand. If he truly wanted to kill her, he could have crushed her throat right then. Instead, he just stares at her. His blue eyes are calm, and he doesn't even flinch when she drops the dagger and switches hands. This is the key moment that fuels the theory. It feels less like a fight and more like a choice. The theory is that the Night King wanted Arya to kill him. He let it happen because that was his goal all along, not to rule forever, but to finally end his own existence. Think about it. The Night King had been alive for thousands of years. He had no emotion, no humanity, and no peace. He was created to be a weapon, not a person. If he was aware of who he was, then maybe he saw his existence as a curse. Over time, he might have grown tired of the endless cycle of war. Every time he killed, he only made his army bigger, but the war never truly ended. If he destroyed the living completely, what then? He would be left with a dead world, standing alone in the cold forever. Perhaps the one thing he wanted was an end to that eternal nightmare. If this sounds strange, look at the way the scene is filmed. The music slows down. The Night King does not roar or fight. His face is almost peaceful in the final second. And when Arya stabs him, there is no struggle. He doesn't throw her away or defend himself. He simply shatters, almost like he was relieved. But why Arya? If he wanted to die, why not let Jon Snow or Daenerys kill him? The theory suggests that Arya was chosen by fate to be the one to end him. All her training with the Faceless Men, all her near-death experiences, every skill she learned, they were leading to this single moment. Melisandre's words to Arya confirm this. She told Arya she would shut many eyes forever, brown, green, and blue. Those blue eyes were not just any eyes, they were the Night King's. The prophecy pointed to Arya being the one who would kill him. If the Night King knew of the three-eyed raven's visions and Bran's role in the world, he might have known Arya was coming. And instead of stopping her, he waited for her. Another part of the theory is that the Night King's death was necessary for the balance of the world. His creation by the Children of the Forest was unnatural. He was never meant to exist forever. He was like a wound in the world that could not heal until he was gone. By letting Arya kill him, he allowed that wound to close. He allowed the world to move forward without him. This is why the snow stopped falling after his death, why the whites collapsed all at once. It was like the world was exhaling in relief. There is also the idea that the Night King was connected to Bran in some deep way. Some fans think they were two sides of the same coin, the past and the future, memory and oblivion. If that is true, then killing Bran might have destroyed history itself. The Night King may have wanted Bran alive so the world could remember him, even if only as a warning. He did not want total destruction, he wanted release. This theory changes the way we see Arya's act. It was not just a sudden heroic strike, but the final step in a plan much bigger than she realized. She was not just a killer, she was a liberator. She freed the Night King from the curse that had held him for so long, and she freed the living from the terror of his army. Of course, this does not make the Night King a hero. He still killed countless people and tried to bring an endless night. But it does make his story tragic. He was made into something he never asked to be. He became the monster everyone feared, but in the end, he may have chosen to end that cycle rather than keep it going. That is why he did nothing when Arya came for him. He wanted it to end. And this is where the mystery becomes more interesting. If the Night King's death was his choice, then it means there was more to his mind than anyone knew. It means he understood the cost of his existence and accepted it. It means Arya was not just lucky, she was exactly where she was supposed to be. If the Night King allowed Arya to kill him, then her role was far greater than just a warrior who struck at the right moment. It means Arya was chosen not only by fate but also by the Night King himself. This idea changes everything about how we see her story. Arya's journey was never about being just a killer. It was about becoming the one person who could carry out this single act, someone who could face death itself and not flinch. Arya had been surrounded by death for most of her life. She saw her father beheaded. She lived through war, betrayal, and famine. She trained with the faceless men, learning to serve the many-faced God, the God of death. Her entire path was about understanding death, respecting it, and even using it as a weapon. When she finally stood in front of the Night King, she was not afraid. She was ready. This is what makes her the perfect person to end him. The Night King, on the other hand, was the embodiment of death. Everything he touched turned to ice. Everywhere he went, life ended. If there was anyone who understood death as much as Arya, it was him. When he caught her in that final moment, it was almost like death meeting death. Two forces that had been moving toward each other for years finally came face to face. This moment feels less like a fight and more like a meeting of destiny. Arya did not scream, and the Night King did not roar. There was only silence. If we look closely, this was the quietest moment of the entire battle. The sounds of war faded into the background, and everything slowed down. This silence could be seen as respect, the Night King respecting the one person who had earned the right to end him. Many viewers expected Jon Snow to be the one to kill the Night King. Jon was the hero, the one who had fought the dead beyond the wall, the one who united the living to face the coming threat. But Jon's story was about leadership and sacrifice, not about assassination. Jon would have faced the Night King in open combat, sword against ice spear. Arya's approach was different. She came out of nowhere, silent, swift, unstoppable. That is exactly why she succeeded where others would have failed. The Night King may have seen Jon coming from a mile away. Jon was brave, but he was predictable. Arya was not. Her ability to become invisible, to hide in plain sight, and to strike without warning was something the Night King could not counter because he had never faced someone like her. If we think about it, Arya was the only character who truly surprised him, and maybe that is why he accepted it. She represented something he could not control: free will, unpredictability, and the human spirit refusing to bow to death. Another key detail that supports this theory is the weapon Arya used. The dagger she carried was made of Valyrian steel, one of the few things capable of killing a White Walker. This dagger had a long and strange history. It was once used in an attempt to kill Bran. It passed through many hands before ending up with Arya. Some fans believe the dagger's journey was fate at work, guiding it to the one person who would use it to end the greatest threat to humanity. When Arya killed the Night King with that dagger, it was like closing a circle that began all the way back in Season 1. But there is a deeper layer to this theory. If the Night King wanted Arya to kill him, then it is possible he had been waiting for her all along. Perhaps he knew there had to be someone worthy of ending him, someone who had seen death up close, who had been shaped by pain but not broken by it. Arya was not a queen, not a knight, not a ruler. She was a girl who became a killer but kept her humanity. She was exactly the kind of person who could bring balance by ending him. Think about what happened after the Night King died. The dead collapsed instantly. The winter storm that had been raging over Winterfell stopped. It was almost as if the Night King's death broke a spell. If he had wanted to win, he could have killed Arya and Bran and then slaughtered everyone else in the castle. Instead, with his death, he freed the world from his own curse. It feels like this was his plan all along, to pass on his power to the one person strong enough to stop him. This also raises an interesting question. What did Arya feel in that moment when she killed him? Arya had killed many people before, but this was different. She was killing the source of all death around her. She might have felt a strange connection, even pity. In that one moment, Arya was not just a Stark of Winterfell. She was Death's chosen hand, ending a war that had lasted for thousands of years. This connection between Arya and the Night King might explain why she was so restless afterward. Even after the long night was over, Arya did not stay in Winterfell. She did not want to be a lady or a queen. She chose to leave and explore what was west of Westeros. Some fans believe this was because her story with death was not over. Killing the Night King may have awakened something in her, a sense that her purpose was greater than the North, greater than even her family. She had looked death in the eyes and won. Where could she go from there except into the unknown? The theory becomes even stronger when we think about Bran. Bran gave Arya the dagger before the battle. He may have seen the future, seen Arya killing the Night King, and given her the tool she would need. But if Bran saw that future, then perhaps the Night King did too. The Night King was drawn to Bran because Bran represented memory, history, and the future. By facing Arya, the Night King may have been accepting his fate rather than fighting it. It is almost poetic. The Night King was created by the children of the forest to destroy men, but he died at the hands of a human girl who was not a soldier or a ruler. His end came not from fire-breathing dragons or an army of knights, but from the smallest and quietest Stark. This is why the theory is so powerful. It shows that the Night King's death was not just a lucky moment. It was destiny. If this theory is true, then Arya did not just save the world. She gave the Night King what he wanted most, an end. She freed him from his curse and allowed the world to heal. In a strange way, this makes her more than a hero. It makes her a judge, passing the final sentence on death itself. Arya's strike ended the long night, but her journey did not end there. The theory that the Night King let her kill him becomes even more fascinating when we look at what happened after his death. For most of the living, the battle was over. People celebrated, they wept, and they tried to rebuild. But Arya did not seem to celebrate. She was relieved, yes, but she was not the kind of person to bask in victory. Something in her had changed that night, something that no one else could see. When Arya looked into the Night King's eyes, she was staring into death itself. Most people would have been frozen with terror, but Arya was calm. This calmness stayed with her long after the battle. It is almost as if killing the Night King gave her a deeper understanding of life and death. She no longer feared dying, and she no longer feared living. This might explain why she made the decision to leave Westeros after everything was done. She was searching for meaning, for what came after death, after destiny, after purpose. If we think about the Night King's final moment, his silence becomes very important. He did not speak because he never spoke. But silence can be powerful. The Night King's silence was not just emptiness, it was a kind of acceptance. By not resisting Arya's strike, he may have been acknowledging that his time was over. He had fought for thousands of years, created an army of the dead, marched south to destroy mankind, and yet in the end he stood still and let it all end. That is not the action of someone desperate to win. That is the action of someone ready to let go. This is what makes Arya's role so unique. She was not just a fighter, she was the one who gave him what he could not take for himself, an ending. Some fans argue that the Night King could not die unless killed in this exact way, with a weapon of dragonglass or Valyrian steel, by someone who was chosen. If this is true, then Arya was not just lucky. She was the one person who could bring balance. Her training with the Faceless Men also plays a huge role in this theory. Arya learned to serve death as the many-faced god's chosen instrument. But she never truly gave up her name or her Stark identity. She walked away from the House of Black and White with her own sense of who she was. This made her different from all the other disciples of death. She could kill, but she could also choose who deserved to die. When Arya killed the Night King, it was not murder, it was justice. And maybe the Night King understood this. Maybe he recognized that Arya was not like everyone else. She was not fighting for glory or power or revenge. She was fighting for life itself. That could be why he did not strike her down. In that moment, he saw that she was ready to do what no one else could do. This theory also raises the question of whether the Night King had some level of humanity left in him. If he was created from a man, then perhaps some part of that man remained inside him all those centuries. He was not just a creature of ice but a being with thoughts and desires. If that is true, then perhaps he wanted to be free. Perhaps he wanted to stop being the weapon the children of the forest had made him. Arya gave him that freedom with one strike. The result of that moment went beyond the end of the battle. It changed Arya forever. After the war, she did not stay to rule or even to live quietly with her family. She chose to leave everything behind and sail west. Some viewers see this as Arya looking for adventure, but it might be something deeper. Maybe she was following the pull of death once more, not to kill, but to understand. She had faced the ultimate darkness and survived. She may have felt she had more to learn about the world, about what lies beyond what anyone has seen. This choice connects her to the Night King in a strange way. Just as he sought to go beyond the wall, to break through the barriers between the living and the dead, Arya sought to go beyond the maps, beyond the edge of the known world. Both were driven by something bigger than themselves. The difference is that Arya chose life, while the Night King chose death. The theory that the Night King let Arya kill him makes his story tragic but also meaningful. He was not just a villain to be defeated. He was the last chapter of a story that began with his creation. And Arya was the final sentence that closed that story. This adds weight to her character in a way that even Jon Snow or Daenerys could not match. She was the quiet answer to a question no one else could solve. Some might argue that this theory makes the Night King too sympathetic, but it does not excuse his actions. He still brought death and fear to countless people. What it does is add depth to his final moment. Instead of being just a monster, he becomes a tragic figure whose life was a cycle of violence that could only end one way. Arya's victory is also symbolic for humanity. The living are not just meant to survive, they are meant to choose. Arya chose to risk everything, and in doing so, she chose life for everyone else. This is why her moment is so powerful. It is not just about killing an enemy. It is about rejecting the idea that death must rule forever. Even Bran's role in all of this ties into the theory. Bran gave Arya the dagger and may have seen exactly how things would unfold. But Bran did not interfere beyond that. He let Arya make the choice. This mirrors the Night King's own choice to let her strike. Both sides of this ancient war stood still and watched as Arya decided the outcome. In that moment, the entire weight of history rested on her shoulders, and she did not falter. This is why the theory has become so popular among fans. It makes the ending of the Long Night feel deliberate, not rushed. It makes Arya's leap the climax of a story that began long before she was born. It makes the Night King's death a moment of balance, not just a lucky stab in the dark. When Arya sailed away at the end of the show, she was not just looking for new lands. She was carrying the memory of that night with her. She was carrying the understanding that even death can end, that even the most powerful curse can be broken. Perhaps she was looking for a place where her skills, her knowledge, and her new understanding of the world could be used for something greater. And maybe that is the real message behind why the Night King did nothing to stop her. It was not weakness. It was not failure. It was acceptance. His story had to end, and Arya was the one meant to end it. In that final moment, the Night King gave her the space to do what she had been preparing for all her life. He gave her the choice, and she chose to kill him. Arya Stark became the one who faced death and said no. She became the one who proved that fate could be changed, that even the darkest night can end. The Night King's silence was his last act, a quiet passing of the torch from one force to another. Death met death and life won. Thanks for watching. If you loved this theory about Arya and the Night King, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a video. What do you think? Did the Night King secretly let Arya kill him, or was it just perfect timing? Share your thoughts in the comments. We will be reading them all.